Messiah is one of the most monumental tracks in drum and bass history. Released in 2000 on Renegade hardware, Kemal and Rob Data, also known as Konflict. Their music redefined the scene with a fresh new sound that changed the landscape of drum and bass. It was futuristic, dark, and infused with a heavy techno influence. Kemal and Rob Data played a huge role in pioneering the neurofunk sound we know today. In this video, I'll share some key lessons I've learned while studying this iconic track, which I think could be incredibly useful for you as well. I'm also happy to see Kemal active again with music. Make sure to follow him on Instagram and check out his Bandcamp. Links are down in the description. Now, let's break down the techniques that can help you create dynamic tracks like Messiah. Let's dive in. Before we start, a quick disclaimer. This won't be an exact replica of the original masterpiece, because that's not the point here. Kemal and Rob Data are absolute studio legends, crafting some of the most iconic sounds in drum and bass history, while I'm just a humble, aspiring music producer who's released a few records on some labels you may have never even heard of, such as Metalheadz, Hospital Records, Critical Music, and 31 Records. But enough about me, let's get into some key concepts we can learn from Messiah. Alright, starting with the drums, we have a simple two-step drum and bass pattern, and if you follow my channel, you should know this pattern by now. I have tons of videos where I go into detail on how to create a drum and bass beat. You can check these videos up here. The key takeaway when studying Konflict's music is they use heavy techno kicks because they are influenced by techno. So we have this heavy kick here. Now the difference with the pattern in Messiah is there is a double kick here. So we're going to duplicate this kick. And then these two kicks are shifted a 16th note earlier. So you have this really funky pattern. Now we can accentuate this pattern by doubling the hi-hats here and here, mirroring the two kicks. We're just gonna bring the velocity down so it plays a bit quieter on these hi-hats. Then they double up the kick pattern, so it's a 2-bar pattern. And at the end of the second bar, we have an extra kick at the end like here. And that's the beat. Now, an important element of the rhythm section of Messiah is this rhythmic, punchy sub bass that plays throughout the track. And this pattern really complements the drum rhythm. So here we have a repeating sub bass pattern. It's just playing every 8th note. Now we're gonna mirror the kick pattern that we created. So remember these two kicks here. We're gonna shift it over at 1/16th note. So we're gonna move it here, and then let's remove out this note. Now we have this. And then let's shift this note up here to make it a little more funky. Now let's hear the sub bass with the entire drum rhythm. Sounding great. By the way, I'm creating this up with a new VST tool I just got sent called Kick Ninja. This is a really intuitive and cool tool to create kick drums and even 808 basses. Essentially, you have this oscillator section. You can modulate the pitch parameter, so maybe you want a more punchy kick like that. Really neat. And then you can even modulate the amplitude envelope, so maybe you want a more fuller sound. I love how the visuals represent what you're doing to the amplitude. You have a distortion section here too. And then you can even add 3 additional layers to add texture to your kick. And any of these layers can be shaped too. So maybe you want to shape the amplitude of that noise layer a little bit. Anyways, that's just a quick preview of Kick Ninja. It's actually available now, and I have a special discount code. If you want to learn more, check the links down below. Now, the reason why I mentioned that sub bass section is so important in this rhythm section, you'll notice that I've grouped all the drums and the sub bass in a common group here called drums. What we're gonna do is add some saturation and overdrive the mix to get some really pleasant harmonics in the high end. And this is only possible when we have the sub bass grouped with the drums. So what I'm doing here is I have this Arteria's pre-1973 EQ, and I have this input section where you can push it, and this emulates analog signals. So you get this really pleasant harmonic when you overdrive the signal. So this is before. Notice how warm it sounds. And then I add another layer of distortion, namely from riff. This time, this is at full wetness, which is a bit too much, so we bring it down to maybe 40 or 50%. So you still got that grit from the distortion, also get dynamics in the drums. So important trick, group your drums and sub bass and add saturation or overdrive the mix to get those pleasant, almost analog sounding harmonics. Very commonly done in techno as well. All right, onto the main attraction, the Reese. And if you want a detailed video on how to create a nasty Reese bass line, check this video up here. But we're gonna create a simple Reese here with Serum. We have a sawtooth waveform, which is the foundation of a Reese sound. And simply we're going to increase the unison mode by multiplying the voices by 3. So now we have 3 voices, which gives us that really wide sound. The key is to detune it. So at 0 detune, they're all playing the same pitch. But as you slowly increase the fine tuning, you got that wide, kind of angry sound. Detune it to taste. Too wide, you get that wobbly sound. So around here works for me around 0.24. And then in the effects section, we have some multi-band compression to really crush this Reese. And then using an EQ, we're dipping some of those box frequencies at around 400 hertz. And just to fill the frequency spectrum, I'm adding some noise. Really tucked under. And we're sending that noise using this N button to a high pass filter. It's really tucked in there, but adds a bit to that Reese. And then for the actual notes of the Reese, it's a pattern like this. It's 2 bars going from an F and moving 2 octaves to E2. By the way, if you want more nasty Reeses, you can check out Gnarly Volume 2, my Serum preset pack, which is out now with over 180 nasty drum and bass presets. You can learn more down in the links below. But here's some nasty Reese basses in Gnarly Volume 2. This is one of my favorite presets I created, Reese Half Fury. Check out some of the macros in changing up this Reese. Oof, that sounds angry. Let's check out more in Gnarly Volume 2. Anyways, that's just a few Reese sounds from Gnarly Volume 2. If you're interested, you can learn more down in the links below. Now that we have the Reese bass, I'm going to show you one of the most important lessons in this video, which is parallel processing. Parallel processing really opens up some creative possibilities because essentially what it is you're sending the same audio to multiple tracks in your project. And within each track, you can apply different effects and processing. And then when you combine everything back together, you end up with something even bigger. So here's a cool trick on how to attain parallel processing in Ableton by assigning different tracks to the same audio. Okay, so remember we have this MIDI track here with Serum, this Reese main. What you want to do is create an empty audio track, and then for its input, select the Reese main as its audio. So now it's reading the audio from Reese main. Now I'm going to mute channel 7 and then here's audio 8. Now in order to hear it, click this in button, and then very important here, there's this drop down. You can choose either pre or post effects. Essentially what it does is if you have effects on this Serum channel, you can either include the input signal before you add the effects or after. But we don't have any effects here, so it doesn't really matter. We're just gonna choose pre-effects. Notice now I've soloed the audio channel and it's playing that Reese signal. Okay, so now that I've explained how to create parallel tracks of the audio. What I've done is I've created one audio track for the high and one audio track for the low end of the Reese here. And what I've done is for the main Reese, I've muted it because we don't need to hear this main Reese. We just want to hear these two combined. So we can check out this. So all I did was I've taken a filter. You can use Ableton's stock filter, but I'm using Arteria's M12. I like the analog sound of this, and I'm removing all the high end. Now remember, we have that rhythmic sub bass, so I'm also removing all the bottom end from this Reese using this high pass here. And then just one more trick with the low end. Because it plays 2 octaves up, there's this resonant frequency in this 169 area. So I'm using a dynamic EQ, so whenever it hits a certain level, it ducks that frequency. So here's without and with. So notice that humming is ducked. Now here's the second track with the high part of the Reese, and I'm high passing the Reese sound, getting rid of that bottom end. And then to make the Reese sound a bit thicker, I'm employing Serum effects. So if you don't know, you can also install Serum effects and apply Serum effects to pretty much any track. So you can apply this chorus to make it thicker. And then I'm distorting it with Rift. Here's that pre-1973 EQ again. And this time I'm ducking some of the high frequencies and I'm boosting some of those high mids at around 1400 Hertz. Much more thicker that way. And then with Pro Q, I'm also ducking some additional high end. And then I'm using that dynamic EQ again to kind of duck that humming frequency. Finally, I have OTT to really make this sound come alive. All right, now let's hear the Reese with the high and low combined. Sounds nasty. Now, one final thing I did to the Reese sound is I'm adding a sidechain compressor. Essentially what I'm doing is I've enabled the sidechain mode and I'm taking audio from our kick, and every time the kick hits, it ducks the Reese a bit. And I have this on both the high and low. I guess what I could have done was just group both channels and then apply the compressor to the group, but I just ended up doing it this way, and this is how it sounds. Notice the Reese ducking every time the kick hits. All right, the final thing to mention about this Reese is in Messiah, there's a lot of movement in this Reese, which creates that kind of emotion and angeriness in that Reese. And to do that, because we have the 2 layers, we're now able to filter just the high layer to create that movement. So what I'm doing is I'm employing this filter again, and this time I'm using the bandpass 4 pull mode. And what I'm doing is assigning it to this automation lane, so that that filter changes with every note. See how it creates more movement when we have that filter moving around the track. By the way, if you want this Reese preset, I'm going to give it away for free down in the comments once we reach 500 likes. Now, it wouldn't be authentically Konflict without some Techno Stabs. After all, they are heavily influenced by techno. So here's a Techno Stab. It's simply a sample playing in Ableton sampler, and then I'm adding some filter sweep, so this attack that slowly opens up the filter. It's a low pass, so it has that swoosh sound, and then we're adding some phaser to it, so there's a little more movement. Add some reverb and delay in the return tracks just to add some wetness, and then there's a completely different Techno Stab here. And as a call and response, here's a completely different Techno Stab sample, and this mirrors that funky kick pattern position. Just playing 2 notes like that. Let's add some EQing, remove the bottom end. Use channel EQ to kind of bring out some frequencies, and the phaser for some movement. And then let's add some reverb and some delay on the return tracks. Okay, let's listen to both stats with the beat on top. sounding nasty. All right, this next section is super interesting. So that iconic, almost Arabic sounding vocal sample is actually a sample from a 90s Euro house track. The track's called Are You Ready to Fly by Rosala. And shouts out to Original Jungle Samples, the channel, for tipping us on that. But here's the original sample. And essentially what we're doing is we're moving the sample to this part here. And then we're playing it an octave down. And then using Ableton Sampler's looping function, you can find it here under sustain mode. We're looping this section here and using this crossfade parameter. We can crossfade it so there's no clicking. That sounds a lot smoother. And then I'm adding some EQ again to make it sound alive. And then adding some reverb. Sounding beautiful. Now here's an important trick in that vocal sample is that when it drops, there's this kind of almost gated sound, making it sound choppy like this. So to accomplish this, I'm using Kickstart and I'm triggering it using MIDI. Essentially what happens is every time that sub bass hits, it ducks this signal. So remember we had this sub bass pattern over here. What I did is I grouped that Kick Ninja into an instrument rack. So now I'm able to add additional layers to this rack. Under this, I added an external instrument, so you can find it under Ableton's instrument section. You just pull an external instrument, and this little device here allows you to send a MIDI signal from the sub bass to that Rosala Ready to Fly channel, and you can then choose the plugin, which is Kickstart. So you're sending that MIDI directly to Kickstart. So every time this bass hits, it triggers Kickstart duck this sound. And let's hear that with the beat. Vibes. And in the opening of Messiah, there's this droning pad sound. And apparently it's a sample from a track called Hardhead by Quadrophonia. And we're sampling the beginning of this track. And we're simply dropping down the pitch by -16 semitones. And then applying some EQing to bring it alive. Finally, in the intro, I'm added some industrial atmospheric sounds and some risers as this pad progresses. It's just good to have these kind of random sounding, almost atonal, atmospheric textures, add some randomness and movement in your track. So I'll also include the vocal sample and this drone pad for free once we hit 500 likes. I might even offer some additional options with some FX processing on these samples. You can have fun with that. All right, now that we have all the sounds, let's check out the track in full. Nasty. And that's my remake of Messiah. Hopefully you learned a thing or two. Comment down below and let me know what other tracks you'd like to see me recreate. Hope you guys enjoyed watching my top tips from studying Konflict's monumental track, Messiah. Parallel processing by assigning multiple audio tracks can be a useful sound design and mixing tool. Not to mention the various patterns we can learn by studying techno music and then applying it to drum and bass. A key ingredient to the evolution of neurofunk DnB. And by the way, my name is Stranger, and if you want to improve your music production and sound design, especially with drum and bass and dance music, like this video and follow my channel. And if you're looking for sample packs, preset packs, and Ableton kits to help you along your journey, check out deviantaudio.com. If you want to learn more nasty drum and bass sound design, check this playlist up here. Also, for more remakes, check this playlist up here. All right, until the next video, stay creative and peace out.